Outside the CEO's office on the 32nd floor of the Sterling Corp Tower, a hush fell over the open-plan workspace. Every employee slowed their movements, their eyes sneaking glances toward the glass-walled sanctum at the corner of the floor. A familiar scene was playing out inside. Leo Foster, the director of engineering, was having his 17-project proposal publicly shot down by the CEO, Catherine Vance. "This is what you spent 2 weeks working on." Catherine's voice, sharp as shattered ice, cut through the glass. "It doesn't even have a complete risk assessment. Sterling Corp isn't paying you to sit on your hands, Leo." Standing before her desk, Leo's back was to the rest of the office, his shoulders drawn tight. Even without seeing his face, his colleagues could picture the quiet humiliation etched there. For 3 years, this scene had replayed itself almost monthly. "Catherine, the risk assessment is in the appendix on page 37. Leo's voice was steady, but a thread of exhaustion ran through it. "I anticipated potential regulatory lag with a new tech application, so I included a separate compliance forecast. If you're referring to market viability, I admit there are unknowns, but that's precisely the breakthrough we need to be aiming for." Catherine let out a cold laugh, snapping the binder shut. "Breakthroughs? Sterling doesn't gamble with its core business. Redo it. I want a new proposal on my desk by Friday." Inside the glass walls, Leo gave a slight nod, gathering his files to leave. Outside, dozens of pairs of eyes darted back to their monitors, feigning intense focus. "Oh, and Leo," Catherine called out, not bothering to look up from the document she was already signing. "You're off the Atlas Group dinner tonight. I've had Jessica arrange for Mr. Davies to go instead." Leo's shoulders stiffened for a fraction of a second before he relaxed. "Understood, Catherine." That was the client he had pulled 3 all-nighters to land. Everyone knew it, including Catherine. The moment Leo stepped out of her office, the break room became the liveliest spot on the floor. Jessica Thorne, Catherine's executive assistant, glided in on 4-inch Jimmy Choos, leaning against the coffee machine with a knowing smirk. "Some people just don't know their place. You really think running to the CEO's office every day is going to get you a seat at the big table?" A few of her cronies tittered in agreement. Leo stood nearby, holding a mug, his knuckles white from his grip, but his face remained a mask of calm. "Excuse me, Jessica." Jessica shifted, deliberately slow, her red lips parting. "Leo, I heard you went to Juilliard? That explains it. You're quite the artist when it comes to." She drew out the words, playing to an audience. The break room fell silent. It was the company's worst-kept secret, Leo Foster's 3-year, one-sided devotion to Catherine Vance. A love so profound and humbling it had never once been returned. "Jessica," Leo's voice was quiet, but it commanded the attention of everyone present. "My feelings for Catherine aren't up for public review." With that, he turned and walked away, his posture ramrod straight. Mark Collins from the engineering team caught up with him, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "Don't let it get to you, man. She's like that with everyone." Leo just shook his head. He knew she wasn't like that with everyone. She was only this hard on him. "Hey," Mark lowered his voice. "I heard Catherine's flying to Europe next week for merger talks. She'll be gone for at least 2 weeks. A flicker of something, pain, longing, resolve, crossed Leo's eyes as he glanced toward Catherine's office. Through the glass, he could see her profile, a stray lock of hair falling across her forehead as she worked, her beauty as sharp and remote as a distant star. 2 weeks, Leo said softly, more to himself than to Mark. "That's enough." Mark looked at him, confused. "Enough for what?" Leo pulled his gaze away, a faint, liberated smile touching his lips. "To finally pay a debt." The day Catherine Vance left for Europe, a strange sense of relief settled over the 32nd floor of the Sterling Corp Tower. Leo stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his office, watching the black Mercedes sedan pull away from the curb below. Catherine was wearing a navy blue Max Mara coat that made her skin look like porcelain. Even from 28 floors up, he could picture the elegant curve of her neck as she lifted her chin. "Going to miss her?" Jessica's voice, dripping with sarcasm, came from behind him. She leaned against the doorframe, tapping her freshly manicured nails on the glass. Leo didn't turn around. His fingers traced the edge of the window frame. "Do you need something, Jessica?" Routine check-in. She strolled in, her heels clicking on the polished concrete, and casually flipped through a file on his desk. "Catherine's orders. While she's away, all engineering proposals go through me first." A muscle twitched in Leo's jaw. Forcing him to submit technical schematics to an assistant who didn't know code from a coffee order was a familiar humiliation. "That won't be necessary." He turned, pulling a document from his briefcase and sliding it across his desk. "This is my letter of resignation." Jessica's perfectly painted mouth fell slightly open, her manicured brows shooting up. "You're quitting?" "Effective immediately." Leo's voice was as calm as if he were discussing the weather. "As per my contract, I'm giving 2 weeks' notice, but I'd like to use my accrued vacation time to cover it. HR said it's fine with my department head's approval." Jessica snatched the letter, her crimson nails leaving faint scratches on the paper as she read. Suddenly, she smiled, a triumphant crinkle appearing at the corners of her eyes. "Well, Catherine's away. That makes me the acting department head." She pulled a Mont-Blanc pen from a holder and scrawled her signature in the approval box. "You can be processed out today." Leo nodded and began to clear his desk. He moved quietly, as if afraid of disturbing a memory. The succulent on the windowsill, the spare pair of glasses in the drawer, the technical manuals on the shelf. 3 years of his life, placed one by one into a cardboard box. Jessica stood by, arms crossed, a victorious glint in her eyes. "Finally realized your league? A woman like Catherine Vance is not for someone like Jessica." Leo cut her off, his voice still gentle, but now laced with steel. "Please show Miss Vance some respect." She scoffed and turned toward the door. "Clear out your office within 2 hours. Security will be by to escort you out." She paused, looking back over her shoulder. "Catherine will be thrilled to finally be rid of this baggage." The door clicked shut. Leo let out a long breath, as if a massive weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He pulled open the bottom drawer of his desk and took out a simple manila envelope. Inside was a single, faded ticket stub from a performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream at Carnegie Hall 10 years ago. Price, $45. Seat, third-tier balcony. His fingertips gently brushed the faded date. He'd been a senior at Juilliard, kicked out of his apartment because he couldn't make rent. He was busking on a street corner with a cello when a sudden downpour sent pedestrians scattering. Only one person, a young woman in a white dress, stopped to listen, and when he finished, she placed this ticket in his cello case. "Your talent deserves a better audience," she'd said, and then she was gone, disappearing into the rain without even giving her name. It wasn't until he started at Sterling Corp 3 years ago that he saw her again at the new CEO's welcome reception. The girl from the rain was Catherine Vance, and she, quite clearly, had no memory of the Broke Street musician. "Leo, need a hand?" Mark Collins poked his head in, his eyes widening at the sight of the packed boxes. "You're really leaving?" Leo carefully tucked the ticket stub into his wallet and nodded. "It's already approved." "Because of that proposal yesterday?" Mark whispered. "Come on, man. Everyone knows she's just extra hard on you. Davy's proposal last month was way worse than yours, and she approved it without a second glance." Leo gave a weary smile. For 3 years, every proposal he submitted was torn to shreds. Every successful project was credited to the team. Every failure was his alone. The whole company gossiped about the engineering director's hopeless crush on the CEO, but no one understood why he put up with the abuse. "It's not about the proposal," Leo said, placing the last of his books in a box. "It's just time." Mark helped him lift one of the boxes. "You know," he said, hesitating, "Ethan Reed from Orion Dynamics called me again last month. He was asking if you'd reconsidered. The offer they made you was more than double what you're making here." Leo's hand paused. Orion Dynamics was Sterling's biggest competitor in the smart home market. They had been trying to poach him for years. He had always turned them down flat, even when their CEO, Ethan Reed, had personally reached out with an astronomical offer. "Get me in touch with him," Leo said. Mark nearly dropped the box. "Are you serious?" "They're Sterling's mortal enemy." Leo looked around the office he'd occupied for 3 years. In the team photos on the wall, Catherine was always at the center, and he was always on the edge. In 3 years, he had navigated them through 3 major crises, saved the company nearly $20 million, and designed their 3 most profitable product lines. And all she had ever given him in return was cold indifference and public humiliation. 10 years, he said softly. The debt's been paid in full. 2 hours later, Leo walked out of the Sterling Corp tower, carrying his last box. The setting sun painted the glass facade in shades of gold, just as it had on his first day. The only difference was, this time, he didn't look back. At that same moment, high above the Atlantic, a message popped up on Catherine Vance's phone in her first-class cabin. "Leo Foster has resigned, effective immediately." He finally figured out he's not in your league. Catherine glanced at the text, the corner of her mouth twitching into a smirk. She powered down her phone, leaned back against the leather seat, and closed her eyes. Outside, the clouds churned like an approaching storm. What she didn't know was that in the 12 hours it would take her to cross the ocean, the Orion Dynamics website would be updated with a new name on its leadership page. Director of Technology, Leo Foster. In a conference room on the 17th floor of the Orion Dynamics building, Leo Foster taped his final chart to the whiteboard and turned to face the 12 members of his new core team. Based on current market feedback, Sterling Corp's smart home ecosystem has 3 critical vulnerabilities. The red dot of his laser pointer landed on the first chart. 1. Their central hub has an average response latency of 0.8 seconds. It's a noticeable lag for the user. The team members exchanged surprised looks. The data was so precise, it felt less like competitive analysis and more like an inside leak. 2. Their voice recognition error rate in ambient noise is 23%, well above the industry average. Leo's voice was calm and measured. And 3. The most critical issue. Their security system has a backdoor. In theory, it's possible to bypass the password protocol and gain direct access to a home security feed. The room was silent. Orion CEO, Ethan Reed, stroked his chin, his expression thoughtful. Leo, how reliable is this data? Leo pulled a stack of test reports from folder. Over the past 72 hours, we secretly tested Sterling's model homes in 20 cities across the country. The results were consistent. He paused. And 2 of those bugs were in my own design. Ethan's eyes lit up. So you left yourself a way in? They were intended for easier back-end maintenance and future upgrades, Leo said, his voice dropping slightly. Catherine, Ms. Vance dislikes frequent system updates. She thinks they disrupt the user experience. His throat still tightened when he said her name. It had been 3 weeks. He thought he'd be over it by now, but the mention of Catherine still sent a dull ache through his chest. This is fantastic, the director of marketing slapped the table. We can launch a targeted campaign highlighting these weaknesses and roll out a competing product before Sterling's fall launch. Leo's gaze swept over the excited faces in the room. I need to assemble a special task force. I want a targeted solution ready in 2 weeks. Ethan, I'll need full authority and budget. Ethan didn't hesitate. The company's resources are yours. He added, a meaningful edge to his voice. I'm glad you finally made the right choice. Leo didn't respond. He knew what Ethan meant. For 3 years, he had rejected Orion's offers 5 times, unwilling to betray Sterling Corp, unwilling to betray Catherine. After the meeting, Leo stood alone at the window. From this vantage point, he could see the Sterling Corp tower 3 blocks away, the glass castle where he had worked for 3 years but had never truly been accepted. He wondered if Catherine had heard about his betrayal. He wondered if she even cared. He pulled out his wallet, his thumb brushing against a faded concert ticket. 10 years. The girl in the white dress from that rainy night had become the infamous ice queen of the corporate world, while he was still trapped in that downpour, unable to move on. Catherine, he whispered to the glass. This time, you can watch my back as I walk away. The flight from Paris landed in New York just after midnight. Catherine Vance pulled her suitcase through the cavernous, empty arrivals hall, the sharp clicks of her heels echoing on the marble floor. She could have stayed in Europe for 3 more days, a rare vacation, but an urgent email last night had shattered her plans. Sterling Corp's Q3 forecast showed a 7% drop in market share for their core smart home division. 3 major clients had abruptly terminated their contracts and defected to Orion Dynamics. In the back of a cab speeding toward Manhattan, Catherine opened her phone to a flood of unread emails. She scanned them quickly, her brow furrowing. An email from Mark Davies, the VP of Engineering, was particularly jarring. Orion's new product is extremely targeted, feels like they have intimate knowledge of our system's core weaknesses. Suspect an internal data leak. Catherine's finger hovered over the screen as a terrible suspicion took root. She dialed Jessica's number. The assistant answered quickly, the sound of loud music in the background. Where did Leo Foster go after he resigned? Catherine asked, cutting straight to the point. There was a 2-second pause. Ms. Vance, you're back? Answer my question. Her voice was glacial. He went to Orion Dynamics. Jessica's voice became small. But I handled it just like you said. He signed a non-compete. We can sue him. When did he sign a non-compete? Catherine snapped. The day he left. It's standard procedure. Catherine hung up, a vein throbbing in her temple. Sterling's standard onboarding did include a non-compete, but she distinctly remembered that Leo's hiring 3 years ago had been an exception. She had been in the middle of a frantic funding round and had fast-tracked his paperwork, skipping that part of the process. Damn it, she hissed. The cab driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Catherine took a deep breath and dialed her head of legal. I need everything you have to sue Leo Foster for breach of his non-compete agreement. I want a complete brief on my desk by 9 a.m. Back at her penthouse, Catherine went straight to her study and opened the safe. Inside was a polished mahogany box where she kept mementos. On top lay a concert ticket, identical to the one Leo carried. A Midsummer Night's Dream, same night, same performance, but her seat had been in the first floor VIP section. She ran a finger over the ticket, her mind drifting back 10 years to that rainy night. She'd been drawn to the street musician outside Juilliard, not just for his incredible skill with the cello, but for his eyes. They held a look of desperation mixed with a final, stubborn flicker of pride, like the last ember in dying ashes. She could have walked by, but the rain was so heavy, and his expression reminded her too much of herself before she'd made it. So she'd left him her spare ticket, a small gesture. She remembered the young man scrambling after her, yelling, "Wait, what's your name?" She hadn't answered, and she never thought she'd see those eyes again. Not until 3 years ago, at the new employee orientation. Leo Foster had been standing at the back of the group, his gaze fixed on her, burning with an intensity that felt like he'd found a long-lost treasure. And now, the owner of those eyes had betrayed her. Catherine snapped the box shut. Tomorrow, she was going to Orion Dynamics herself. She wanted to see if the man who once practically bowed in her presence would have the nerve to look her in the eye. At 9:15 the next morning, a commotion erupted in the lobby of Orion Dynamics. The receptionist scrambled to block a woman and her entourage from marching past the front desk. I'm sorry, you can't go up without an appointment. Tell Leo Foster that Catherine Vance is here to see him. The CEO of Sterling Corp., dressed in a black Armani power suit and flanked by 2 lawyers, radiated an aura of command so intense that even the security guards hesitated to approach. Ms. Vance, it's against policy. Either he's down here in 5 minutes or Orion Dynamics is tomorrow's headline. Catherine's voice wasn't loud, but it silenced the entire lobby. You're harboring a man who stole trade secrets. I have more than enough to press charges. The elevator pinged open and Leo stepped out. He wore a simple charcoal suit, no tie, and looked more rested and confident than he ever had at Sterling. Their eyes met, and for a second, Catherine felt a jolt. The gaze that once held such gentle adoration was now perfectly, chillingly calm. Ms. Vance, to what do I owe the pleasure? Leo stopped in front of her, his tone polite but distant. Catherine lifted her chin. Let's talk somewhere private. No need, Leo smiled. This is fine. Since you're accusing me of a crime, a public forum seems fair to both of us, don't you think? She hadn't expected him to be so defiant. She gestured to her lawyer. Mr. Foster, your employment contract with Sterling Corporation includes a non-compete clause, which prohibits you from joining a competitor for 18 months post-termination. You are in direct violation, and we are prepared to file a lawsuit. A crowd of Orion employees had gathered, their whispers filling the air. Unfazed, Leo pulled a document from his briefcase and handed it to Catherine. This is the original copy of my employment contract. Please, show me where the non-compete clause is. Catherine snatched the document. As she scanned it, her face grew paler. The final page, where the non-compete addendum should have been, was blank. That's impossible, she looked up, her eyes flashing. Every executive signs that agreement. Leo watched her, his expression unreadable. 3 years ago, you personally fast-tracked my hiring and skipped that step. I reminded you 3 times to have me sign a revised contract. Your words were, he paused, don't bother me with trivialities. Catherine's fingers tightened on the contract, her knuckles turning white. She remembered. She'd been buried in a massive acquisition deal and had brushed him off without a second thought. Even so, she forced the words out. Your theft of Sterling's trade secrets is a criminal offense. What secrets did I take? Leo countered. The system architecture I designed? Or the security flaws I discovered? Or perhaps... He took a step closer, his voice dropping low. You're referring to the 12 patents I developed for Sterling over 3 years? The ones that only ever listed the team's name? Never mind. Catherine's breath hitched. She had never considered that Leo would care about such things. In her mind, the privilege of working at Sterling, of being near her, was reward enough. Ms. Vance, Leo stepped back, his tone once again coolly professional. If you have concrete evidence, please proceed with legal action. Until then, you'll have to excuse me. I have work to do. He turned and walked toward the elevator, his back straight as a soldier's, without a single backward glance. Catherine stood frozen as the contract slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. In that moment, she realized that the Leo Foster who had silently stood by her for years was well and truly gone. The air conditioning in the Orion Dynamics lobby seemed to have failed. A hot flush crept up Catherine's neck, and a buzzing filled her ears. The stares of the surrounding employees felt like 1,000 tiny needles piercing her pride. "You planned this all along, didn't you?" she hissed, her voice barely a whisper. "You faked your loyalty just to set me up for this." Leo's expression remained unchanged. "Ms. Vance, I thought you knew me well enough to know I don't break the law." The words were like a slap across the face. For 3 years, she had never truly seen him, never bothered to remember which projects he led. To her, he was always the charity case from that rainy night, the subordinate who followed her with devoted eyes. "The law is the bare minimum," she said, raising her voice so the onlookers could hear. "What about ethics? What about loyalty? Sterling invested 3 years in you, and this is how you repay us." A murmur rippled through the lobby. A faint frown creased Leo's brow before smoothing out. He pulled his phone from his suit pocket and played a voice message. "Leo Foster has resigned, effective immediately. He finally figured out he's not in your league." Jessica's sycophantic voice echoed clearly from the phone speaker. The color drained from Catherine's face. It was the message she had received on the plane. "Is this what you call investing in me, Ms. Vance?" Leo stopped the playback. "In my 3 years at Sterling, I developed 12 patents and saved the company nearly $20 million. The highest praise you ever gave me was not bad." He took another step closer, his voice so low only she could hear. "You want to know the most ironic part? Until yesterday, my work computer password was the date you saved my life." Catherine's breath caught in her throat. She never imagined he remembered that night in such detail, let alone that he would honor it for a decade. "That's enough," she snapped, stumbling back a step. "This isn't over. Sterling will see this through to the end. I'll be waiting." Leo gave a slight nod, turned, and walked into the waiting elevator, his posture as unyielding as a drawn sword. Catherine stood rooted to the spot. It was her assistant who finally touched her arm gently. "Ms. Vance, the media is outside." She looked up and saw the flash of cameras through the glass doors. Damn it, a reporter must have gotten a tip. If she left looking defeated, tomorrow's business section headline would be Sterling CEO humiliated by ex-employees counterattack. "Side exit. Now," she commanded, the furious clicking of her heels echoing on the marble floor. In the back of the black Mercedes, Catherine ripped open the top button of her blazer. Outside, the Orion Dynamics logo glinted in the sun, a painful glare. "Back to the office. Get the entire legal department in a conference room. Now," she told her assistant, then immediately dialed Jessica's number. "I want a full audit of every project file Leo Foster ever accessed at Sterling, especially the core design specs for the smart home system." After hanging up, she leaned back against the leather seat and closed her eyes. A memory surfaced. Leo, standing in her office last winter, holding a folder. "Catherine." HR sent a reminder about the revised non-compete agreement. He had said, his gaze a mixture of hope and anxiety. "It's important for protecting the company's IP." What had she been doing? Right, a video conference with a client in Europe. She hadn't even looked up, just waved a dismissive hand. "Don't bother me with trivialities. Just leave it on the desk." Where had that file gone? She couldn't remember. Just like she couldn't remember all the nights Leo had worked late for her, or how the coffee he brought her was always the perfect temperature, or the look in his eyes that always made her feel uncomfortable. "We're here, Ms. Vance." On the 32nd floor of the Sterling Tower, the legal team was assembled. Catherine swept her gaze across the room, her voice cold. "I want Leo Foster to pay." The head of legal wiped a bead of sweat from his brow. "Ms. Vance, based on what we have, it will be very difficult to prove he stole trade secrets, unless we can find direct evidence of him downloading files." "Then find it." Catherine slammed her hand on the table, combed through his computer records, his email history, every file he touched before he left. The meeting dragged on for 2 hours, yielding nothing but a weak and reactive PR strategy. Back in her office, Catherine locked the door, overcome by a strange sense of powerlessness. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle in the dusk. Her gaze drifted involuntarily to the brightly lit tower 3 blocks away, Orion Dynamics. What was Leo doing right now? Working on a plan to further dismantle Sterling's market share? Or celebrating his first victory with his new executives? She opened her laptop and pulled up Leo's work history at Sterling. The system showed he had managed 473 projects and submitted 1,026 reports over 3 years. The numbers stunned her. She'd never realized the sheer volume of his work. The more she read, the deeper her frown became. During the financing crisis last year, it was Leo who stayed up all night convincing an investor to double down. The year before, when a security breach threatened their flagship product, It was he who led the team through a 3-day, sleepless marathon to patch it. 6 months ago, when her father had a sudden heart attack, it was Leo who had silently taken over all her urgent responsibilities so she could be at the hospital. Catherine snapped the laptop shut. She remembered these events, of course, but she'd never connected them so directly to Leo. To her, it was simply an employee doing his job. She never considered the personal cost behind it. As night deepened, Catherine found herself driving, ending up parked across the street from the Orion Dynamics building. A single light was on in a corner office on the 17th floor. On impulse, she stopped the car and looked up at that small square of light. Just to see what he's so busy with, she muttered to herself, dialing a number she'd saved long ago but never used. Leo's personal cell. He answered almost immediately. Catherine. His voice was a mix of exhaustion and surprise. I'm outside your building, she said. We need to talk. After a few seconds of silence, a quiet sigh came through the line. Give me a minute. 10 minutes later, Leo appeared at the building's entrance. He'd taken off his suit jacket, and the sleeves of his white shirt were rolled up to his elbows, revealing lean, defined forearms. Catherine realized with a jolt that she had never truly noticed what he looked like before. What couldn't be said over the phone? He asked, stopping a good 6 feet away from her, his tone neutral. Catherine took a deep breath. Today, I was out of line. Leo raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting an apology. But I need you to understand, she pressed on, Sterling will not just sit back and watch its market share erode. If you're willing to come back, you can name your price. In the moonlight, Leo's expression was unreadable. After a long moment, he let out a soft laugh. Catherine, have you forgotten who signed my resignation papers? That was Jessica. It was you. Leo interrupted. You enabled her. You enabled all of them. For 3 years, in your eyes, I was nothing more than that charity case you found on the street. The words hit her like a physical blow. He did remember that night. I admit, I may have been neglectful in the past, she said, struggling for the right words. But Sterling gave you a platform to grow. A platform? Leo laughed again, but this time it was sharp. Do you know why Orion was willing to pay me 3 times my salary? Because they saw my actual value, not the deluded, lovesick puppy you saw. Catherine opened her mouth to argue, but found she had nothing to say. He was right. That was exactly how she had seen him. As a subordinate entangled by a youthful debt of gratitude, easily dismissed and entirely replaceable. It's been 10 years, Catherine, Leo's voice softened. For the ticket you gave me that night, I've repaid you with 3 years of my life. Now we're even. He turned to leave. On pure instinct, Catherine reached out and grabbed his wrist. Wait. The moment their skin touched, they both flinched. His wrist was warm and strong, his pulse beating steadily against her palm. It was the first time they had ever touched. Is there something else? Leo asked, gently pulling his arm away. Catherine scrambled for a reason to keep him there, but all she could come up with was the most irrelevant question. Why Orion? With your talent? You could have gone anywhere. Leo looked at her for a long time, so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he spoke, his voice quiet. Because it's only when I'm standing on the other side that you'll finally see me. With that, he turned and walked back into the building, his silhouette disappearing into the bright lobby. Catherine stood alone on the sidewalk, the night wind tangling her hair and stirring a profound, unfamiliar chaos in her heart. Back in her car, she called HR. First thing tomorrow morning, I want a complete performance review and contribution assessment for Leo Foster's entire 3-year tenure at Sterling. After hanging up, she looked up at the 17th floor window, where a lone figure was bent over a desk. A feeling she had never experienced before began to bloom in her chest. The chilling realization that she may have just made the biggest mistake of her life. In the top floor boardroom of Sterling Corp., Catherine slammed a file onto the center of the long table. This is a list of the 6 clients we lost to Orion Dynamics last month. Her icy gaze swept over her executives. Can anyone tell me why our core customers are defecting en masse? The room was deathly quiet. The director of marketing had beads of sweat on his forehead. Mark Davies, the VP of engineering, stared intently at his papers. Only Jessica Thorne was foolish enough to speak. Catherine, it's obvious Leo took our client data with him. We should sue. Quiet. A single look from Catherine silenced her. Mr. Davies, did your engineering team have no warning whatsoever? Davies nervously adjusted his glasses. Well, Orion's new product is incredibly targeted. It almost perfectly circumvents our system's strengths and hits every single weakness, especially the security flaw, which we hadn't even discovered ourselves. Flaw? Catherine's eyes narrowed. What flaw? It's, Davies stammered, pulling up a technical report. A backdoor in the smart lock firmware. Theoretically, it can be bypassed with a specific acoustic frequency, overriding the password verification. Catherine stared at the complex code on the screen. The discovery date at the bottom was 3 months ago, from the last project Leo had overseen before his departure. The report was signed by the engineering team, with no mention of Leo's name. Is this flaw patched yet? Her voice was suddenly, terrifyingly calm. We're still testing the security patch. 3 days. Catherine held up 3 fingers. Either you fix the vulnerability, or you draft your resignation letter. After the meeting, Catherine remained alone in the empty boardroom and made a call to a number she rarely used. Mr. Donovan, regarding that loan for Orion Dynamics. Yes, I heard it ran into some approval issues. Of course, Sterling would be more than happy to become a strategic partner for your bank. Hanging up, a cold smile touched her lips. Did Leo think he could escape her orbit just by switching companies? How naive. After years clawing her way to the top, her network and influence were far greater than any one director of engineering could imagine. Her phone buzzed. It was an urgent alert from the PR department. Leo Foster is representing Orion Dynamics at tomorrow's Smart Home Summit. His keynote is titled Industry Security Risks and Solutions. Catherine's fingers tightened around her phone. The title was a direct shot at Sterling. She replied instantly. Arrange for a full press crew to cover his speech. I want a recording of every single word he says. The next day at the summit, Catherine sat in a corner in the 3rd row, wearing sunglasses large enough to hide half her face. When Leo walked onto the stage in a sharp navy suit, a murmur went through the crowd. Everyone in the industry knew the story of his recent jump from Sterling. Today, I want to talk about the security blind spots in the smart home industry. Leo's voice, calm and clear, filled the auditorium. Take, for example, a leading system currently on the market. Its security module has 3 critical defects. Catherine clenched her jaw. Though he never said the name, every professional in the room knew he was talking about Sterling's product. What was worse, the vulnerabilities he was exposing were ones her own team hadn't fully grasped yet. After his speech, reporters swarmed him. Catherine heard a sharp question from the crowd. Mr. Foster, are the vulnerabilities you've disclosed based on your prior work experience at Sterling? Does this not constitute a breach of professional ethics? Leo faced the cameras, his expression open and honest. Everything I've shared today is the result of my new team's independent research at Orion. As for ethics, he paused. I believe it is a corporation's highest ethical duty to be transparent with the public about product safety risks. His words were a dagger to her heart. She shot to her feet and quickly left the auditorium before anyone could notice her. Back at the office, she immediately convened a crisis meeting. Engineering reported on their progress patching the flaw. PR drafted a media response, and legal once again explored the possibility of suing Leo. The entire Sterling Corporation was on red alert. Ms. Vance, reporters are asking for our official response to the Orion director's statements. The head of PR asked cautiously. Catherine stared at a video replay of Leo's speech on her laptop. The confident, poised man on the screen was a stranger compared to the one who had worked for her. Tell them Sterling has always prioritized user security, and all our products are internationally certified. As for baseless accusations from a competitor, we reserve the right to pursue legal action, she said coldly. Also, contact the summit organizers and lodge a formal complaint against Orion Dynamics for using a professional forum for unfair competitive practices. The meeting lasted late into the night. When everyone had finally left, Catherine walked to the office that had once been Leo's. It was still empty. HR hadn't assigned it to anyone yet. She switched on the light and looked around. The space was immaculate, showing almost no signs of its previous occupant. On a strange impulse, she went to the desk and began opening the drawers. In the bottom drawer, she found a plain black notebook. After a moment's hesitation, she picked it up. The first page was dated a year ago, filled with dense meeting schedules and work notes. She flipped through it quickly until one page stopped her cold. On the date of her birthday, Leo had drawn a tiny heart in red ink. Her pulse quickened. She kept flipping, discovering that her birthday, the company anniversary, and even other specific dates were all specially marked. Some had short notes beside them. Stomach hurt today. Remember ginger tea. Project approved, she smiled. Worked till 3 a.m. Drove her home. The last few pages were from a month before he left. Catherine was shocked to see he had even tracked her menstrual cycle, with notes like watch for mood swings and prepare painkillers. The notebook slipped from her grasp. These small, meticulous details were like 1,000 needles piercing her heart at once. Leo's understanding of her was far deeper than she had ever imagined. And she couldn't even remember if he preferred coffee or tea. Her phone rang. It was the private investigator she'd hired a week ago to tail Leo, hoping to find evidence he'd taken confidential files. Ms. Vance, today's report is a little unusual, the investigator said, sounding perplexed. After work, Foster didn't go straight home. He went to the Sunbeam Youth Center on the west side. A youth center? Yes. He was there for 2 hours, teaching children how to play the piano. According to the director, he's been doing it every Wednesday, without fail for the past 3 years. Catherine gripped the phone. 3 years ago was when he had started at Sterling, and the Sunbeam Youth Center was just 1 block away from Juilliard, where they had first met 10 years ago. Hanging up, Catherine stood at the window, staring at the distant lights of the Orion Dynamics building. A complex storm of emotions, anger, confusion, and a sharp, unfamiliar pain raged within her. The next morning, Catherine made a decision that stunned everyone. She canceled all her morning meetings and drove to the Sunbeam Youth Center herself. It was a modest, slightly worn white building with a few rusty swings in the yard. She parked across the street and watched through the fence. A group of children was gathered around a piano, and a familiar figure was showing them a simple melody. Leo was dressed in a simple white shirt and jeans. Gone was the sharp corporate attire, replaced by a soft, approachable warmth. When a little girl fumbled a note, he patiently corrected her finger placement, a gentle smile on his face that Catherine had never seen before. The director's office door was open. Catherine knocked softly. "Hello, may I help you?" A kind-faced older woman looked up. Catherine offered her business card. "I'm Catherine Vance from Sterling Corp. I was hoping to learn more about your music program." The director's eyes lit up. "Ms. Vance, what honor. Mr. Foster speaks of you often." Catherine's heart skipped a beat. "Monsieur me?" "Oh, yes. He says you're the most important person in his life," the director said warmly, inviting her to sit. "When he first started volunteering 3 years ago, he told me it was because of your encouragement years ago that he decided to give back to the community through music." Catherine's fingers traced the rim of her teacup. That rainy night, when she had carelessly handed over a concert ticket, she never imagined it would alter the course of someone's life. "Mr. Foster is such a good man," the director continued. "No matter how busy he gets, he's here every week. Last year, when our budget was tight, he even bought this piano for the children with his own money." Through the window, Catherine could hear the joyful sound of children singing along to the piano. She saw Leo singing a simple nursery rhyme with them, the sunlight catching his profile and tracing it in a warm glow. In that moment, she had a startling realization. In 10 years, Leo had never changed. The one who had changed was her, from a girl who would give a ticket to a stranger to a cold, calculating businesswoman. When she left, she didn't let Leo see her. She sat in her car for a long time without starting the engine. Her phone screen lit up with a message from Jessica's replacement. "Ms. Vance, as per your instructions, we have contacted 5 venture capital firms. They have all agreed to delay their investment evaluations for Orion Dynamics." Catherine stared at the message, a flicker of hesitation, the first she had felt in a long time. Her original plan had been to cut off Orion's funding, to make Leo pay for defying her. But now, the faint sound of the piano, mixed with the children's laughter, drifted from the youth center. Catherine closed her eyes, and the scene from that rainy night replayed in her mind. A young Leo, kneeling on the wet pavement, desperately trying to shield his cello, and her, under her umbrella, stopping on a whim. Her phone vibrated again. It was her father. "Catherine, the board has noted the recent market share decline. I need to see a turnaround plan before Monday's meeting." She took a deep breath, slipping the mask of the powerful CEO back on. "It's being handled," she texted back. "Orion Dynamics won't be celebrating for long." Before driving away, she took one last look at the youth center window. Leo was leaning down, listening intently to a little boy, his expression focused and gentle. Catherine felt a sudden, sharp pang of curiosity. If she walked up to him right now, what kind of look would be in his eyes? Would it be the hopeful gaze of the past, or the cool, distant professionalism from the summit? Her fingers tightened on the steering wheel, then relaxed. Finally, she stepped on the gas, pulling away from the warmth of a place where she no longer belonged. The sound of piano music drifted from the Sunbeam Youth Center's auditorium into the black Mercedes parked across the street. Catherine sat in the driver's seat, checking her makeup for the 10th time. The woman in the rearview mirror wore a simple white dress, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, an almost exact replica of her appearance on that rainy night 10 years ago. "Too obvious," she muttered, pulling her hair into a ponytail. then deciding it was too severe and letting it down again. Finally, she sighed in frustration and picked up the sheet music from the passenger seat, Schumann's Traumerei, the piece Leo had been playing in the rain. A poster for the Sunbeam charity concert was taped to the auditorium door. Taking a deep breath, Catherine pushed it open. The lighting inside was soft, and a few dozen people, mostly children and their families, sat in folding chairs. Her eyes immediately found Leo at the side of the stage, helping a little girl tune her cello, his profile sharply focused under the lights. Catherine chose a seat in the back row. As soon as she sat, her phone vibrated. It was her new assistant, Ms. Vance. As instructed, I've let it be known to Leo that you sponsor the center. The director will also arrange for you to come on stage at the appropriate time. She switched off her phone, her palms slick with sweat. This chance encounter had been a week in the planning. First, an anonymous $500,000 donation earmarked for music education. Then, a hint to the director that she might attend the concert. And finally, a calculated leak of the information to someone at Orion Dynamics. All of it was designed to create this seemingly coincidental reunion. And now, please welcome our Little Stars choir performing On Wings of Song, the director announced enthusiastically. With special thanks to Mr. Leo for his tireless guidance over the past 3 years. As the audience applauded, Leo walked to the piano. When the children's pure voices rose in song, his accompaniment flowed around them like water. Catherine held her breath. 10 years later, she was hearing him play again. Unlike the desperate notes of Traumerei in the rain, this music was warm and bright, capable of chasing away any shadow. When the song ended, the director suddenly looked to the back of the room. Today, we are honored to have a very special guest with us, the CEO of Sterling Corp, Ms. Catherine Vance. Ms. Vance recently made a generous donation of $500,000 to our music education program. Every head in the room turned. Catherine rose gracefully, seeing from the corner of her eye that Leo had frozen on stage. She smiled and walked to the reserved seat at the front, directly in front of the piano. And now perhaps Ms. Vance would honor us with a few words, the director said, handing her a microphone. Catherine took it, her gaze locked on Leo. Music has a magical power, she began, her voice soft, a stark contrast to her usual commanding tone. It can bring light to the darkest moments. 10 years ago, I was moved by the music of a street performer. 10 years later, I'm overjoyed to see him using that same gift to light up the lives of so many children. Leo's expression flickered, but he quickly regained his composure. Catherine wasn't sure if he understood her hidden message, that she remembered that night, that she remembered him. The concert continued. Catherine maintained a polite smile, but she felt as if she were sitting on pins and needles. Leo never looked at her again, focusing all his attention on helping each child perform. It wasn't until the intermission that she had a chance to approach him. Leo, she said softly. He turned, his expression polite but distant. Ms. Vance, I didn't realize you were interested in charity concerts. I've recently come to a new understanding of many things. She held out the sheet music for Traumerei. Do you remember this? His eyes fell to the music, and for a fleeting second, his professional mask slipped. But it was quickly back in place. It's a classic piece. Many musicians have played it. Catherine, a sharp voice cut in. 3 impeccably dressed young women approached, the leader sporting a head of platinum blonde hair. It really is you. Jessica's replacement said you were here. We thought she was joking. Catherine's expression tightened. It was her inner circle. The blonde was Chloe Sterling, heiress to the Sterling jewelry fortune, and the other 2 were also prominent New York socialites. She hadn't invited them. What are you all doing here? Supporting charity, of course. Chloe linked her arm through Catherine's, but her eyes were sizing up Leo. And this must be what was his name again? The ex-employee Jessica's replacement mentioned you've been so interested in lately. Leo gave a slight nod. Leo Foster. I'm with Orion Dynamics now. Oh, right. The director who chased Catherine for 3 years and got nowhere. Chloe's tone was mocking. I heard you jumped ship to a competitor. If you can't have her, destroy her, right? Very dramatic. The other 2 women giggled. The color drained from Catherine's face. Chloe. Leo's expression didn't change, but his eyes grew colder. You're mistaken, Ms. Sterling. My career choices are based purely on professional development. Are they? Chloe pressed. Then why Orion? The whole industry knows they're Sterling's mortal enemy. She glanced suggestively at Catherine. Catherine, darling, I've seen this type of man before. They act all devoted, but it's really just about pride. That's enough. Catherine snapped, but the damage was done. Leo's lips curved into a smile devoid of any warmth. Ms. Sterling is right. I do care a great deal about my pride. He looked directly at Catherine, his gaze making her flinch. If you'll excuse me, Ms. Vance. Leo, wait. Catherine tried to follow him, but her friends held her back. Just let him go, it's so beneath you, Chloe said with a toss of her hair. The new girl said he's just using his technical skills to get your attention. Catherine violently shook off her arm. The new girl? How well do you know my assistant? The three women exchanged uneasy glances. Chloe stammered, well, she shops with us, sometimes. Didn't you ask her to keep your friends company? Catherine felt as if she'd been struck by lightning. For years, her assistants had presented themselves as her confidants, and she'd been completely oblivious. Watching Leo's retreating back, she was seized by a panic she had never felt before. Get out, she said coldly to her friends, ignoring their shocked expressions as she ran out of the auditorium. In the parking lot, Leo was just about to open his car door when he heard the rapid click of heels behind him. Leo, Catherine caught up to him, out of breath. I'm so sorry. I had no idea they would be here. It's fine, he said calmly. I'm used to it. Those three simple words were like a knife in her heart. Used to the ridicule, used to the condescension, used to being nothing in her world. It's not like that, she said urgently. I've been thinking about us. That rainy night outside Juilliard. For the first time, his expression shifted. You remember? Of course, I remember. The concert ticket, your cello. Her voice grew smaller. I didn't know that you remembered. How could I forget? Leo gave a bitter smile. That day, I was homeless and had $23 to my name. Your ticket and what you said, it made me feel like I still had worth. Catherine's eyes burned. So for the past 3 years, you were grateful? Yes, but it was more than that. He looked directly into her eyes. But after 10 years, Catherine, am I still just a charity case to you? She opened her mouth, but no words came out, because she realized, with dawning horror, that she had never seen him as an equal. Even after learning he was the street musician, she had mentally filed him away as the one who owes me. I don't, he said, opening his car door. The donation, this chance encounter today, they're just different forms of charity, and I don't need it anymore. As he drove away, Catherine stood alone in the empty parking lot, a bone-deep chill seeping into her. She thought of the meticulous notes in his journal, the director saying he's here every week, the gentle way he looked at the children. What exactly had she thrown away? Back at the office, Catherine stormed into her assistant's workspace, startling the young woman who was touching up her lipstick. Ms. Vance? Is the concert over already? As of tomorrow, you no longer work here, Catherine said, her voice like ice. HR will handle your severance. The assistant's face paled. Why? What did I do? For starters, share my private affairs with my friends? Catherine's smile was frigid and deliberately provoking Leo on the day he resigned. The assistant's fear turned to a sneer. Oh, so this is about him? Ms. Vance, the whole company knows he was a pathetic loser trying to punch above his weight. Get out, Catherine pointed to the door. Now, after the assistant had gone, Catherine collapsed in front of her computer. On the screen was a video of Orion Dynamics' latest product launch, with Leo holding the stage. She reached out, her fingers tracing his image on the monitor, a heavy ache in her chest. Late that night, alone in her office, she dialed a number she rarely used. Ethan, it's Catherine Vance. She addressed the Orion CEO by his first name. I need some information about Leo. A low chuckle came from the other end. Ms. Vance calling me this late to poach my top talent. This isn't about poaching. She took a deep breath. I want to know how he's been since he started. Everything. Ethan was silent for a moment. Interesting. Leo did mention you two had some history. I'm guessing it wasn't pleasant. That's none of your business. Catherine clenched her fist. Name your price. My price. Ethan laughed. All right. I want Sterling's R&D center in the South Bay. In your dreams. Then we have nothing to talk about, he said breezily. By the way, Leo seemed pretty down when he got back tonight. I'm guessing it had something to do with your chance encounter? Catherine slammed the phone down, her chest heaving. She turned to her computer, logged into the company's internal network, and looked up the serial number of the laptop Leo had used. As CEO, she had access to all company devices, even those of former employees. IT quickly brought her Leo's old laptop. It was company property he'd left behind, not yet reassigned. She plugged it in. When the password prompt appeared, she instinctively typed in the date, 06152013. The screen flickered and the desktop appeared. Catherine covered her mouth. He'd been gone for 2 months, and he still hadn't changed the password. The desktop was neatly organized with work folders. She clicked on an encrypted folder labeled Personal and entered the same password. It opened. Inside was a single document, the 1001st letter to K. V. Her hands trembling, Catherine opened it. The words on the screen made her breath catch. Catherine, this is my last attempt. After 1,000 letters that went unsent, I've decided to let myself go, and to let you go. She quickly opened the document's version history and saw that, starting from his first day at Sterling, Leo had written one of these letters almost every week, but none had ever been sent. The earliest ones were marked unsent. Later, they became will not be sent. The last few dozen were labeled need not be sent. She clicked on an early one at random. Today was the first time you shot down my proposal. Everyone in the boardroom looked at me with pity, but all I could see was the tiny mole near your eye when you frowned. I know you don't think I'm good enough. I'll work harder. One from the middle. I pulled another all-nighter for you, but you didn't even realize the presentation was mine. When Jessica handed it to you as her own work, you smiled at her. I wish, just once, you would smile at me like that. The most recent one, dated the day before he resigned. It's been 10 years, and I still remember every detail of that rainstorm. Your umbrella was clear, your white dress had a small flower on the collar, and when you put the ticket down, your fingers brushed the wood of my cello case. I swear that spot is still warm. But today, you told me not to get any ideas, and I finally understood. To you, it was a random act of charity. To me, it was the brightest moment of my life. I have to let go. Tears blurred her vision. She wiped them away frantically, but they kept coming. With a shaking hand, she clicked on the final letter, the 1001 SD. They say love is an accumulation of moments, but so is disappointment. After 1,000 attempts, my disappointment is finally full. You will never see these letters, just as you have never truly seen me. 10 years ago, you gave me a ticket to a concert. I have repaid you with 3 years of my life. Now we're even. The glow of the monitor illuminated Catherine's tear-streaked face. She finally understood what she had lost. It wasn't just devotion. It was a heart, true and sincere, that she had never bothered to cherish. Outside, the lights of New York City glittered, but for the first time, it felt like not a single one was shining for her. The air in the Sterling Core boardroom was so thick it felt hard to breathe. Catherine stood before the projection screen, the laser pointer in her hand trembling as it traced a downward-sloping line on the financial chart. Last quarter's market share dropped 12%, with net profits shrinking by 37%. She struggled to keep her voice steady, her eyes scanning the stony faces of the board members. However, we have already implemented a detailed recovery plan. That's enough. Dylan Vance, her cousin, seated at the head of the table, cut her off. The board has seen enough of your plans. Catherine's hand clenched into a fist. Dylan was dressed in an uncharacteristically formal suit today, his hair slicked back, his usual smirk replaced by a mask of grim seriousness. The change set every nerve in her body on edge. Do you have a better idea, cousin? She asked, deliberately emphasizing their family tie. Dylan gave a cold smile and pushed a folder across the table. This is a letter signed by 16 shareholders, representing 34.5% of the company's stock. They're demanding a special meeting to discuss a change in management. The room erupted in murmurs. Catherine's fingers felt like ice as she picked up the papers. She scanned the signatures. Besides Dylan, there were 3 other executives and 12 external shareholders, including Orion Dynamics CEO, Ethan Reed. Ethan Reed, she looked up sharply. You're colluding with Orion? Just good business, Dylan said, casually twirling a pen. Ethan appreciates my vision for the smart home market, especially after some of our key technical talent jumped ship. A knot of ice formed in Catherine's stomach. Leo. The name was a razor blade across her heart. Ladies and gentlemen, Dylan stood, addressing the room. For the past 6 months, under Catherine's brilliant leadership, Sterling's market value has plummeted by nearly 40%, and our core team has disintegrated. But today, I regret to inform you, we've uncovered a much more serious problem. He clicked a remote. The projection switched to a financial report. A preliminary audit reveals that during Ms. Vance's tenure as CEO, there's evidence of systematic financial fraud, with profits inflated by at least. That's a lie. Catherine slammed her hand on the table, her voice raw with fury. Those numbers are fabricated. Dylan calmly pushed a flash drive toward her. The raw data is all here. I invite you all to verify it independently. Given the severity of the situation, I move that we immediately suspend Catherine Vance of her duties as CEO, with myself as interim, until the special shareholders meeting. The air was sucked out of the room. Catherine looked at the faces of the board members who had once praised her, now avoiding her gaze, some already nodding in agreement with Dylan. Her vision blurred, not with tears, but with pure white-hot rage. "I need time to review these allegations," she said through gritted teeth. "Of course," Dylan smiled. "The board will give you 24 hours. By this time tomorrow, we expect either your resignation or we will initiate legal proceedings." After the meeting, Catherine locked herself in her office and methodically destroyed it. A crystal award shattered against the wall. Annual reports scattered across the floor. Finally, she shoved her monitor off the desk with a crash. Shaking, she dialed her father's number, only to be met with his voicemail. Outside, a torrential downpour began, just like the rain that had changed her life 10 years ago. Only this time, there was no one to offer her an umbrella. At 3 a.m, Catherine was curled on her office sofa, her eyes raw and aching. She had torn through every financial file she could find, but saw no way to disprove Dylan's claims. The fabricated data was too clean, too well-prepared. It was a trap. Her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "Check your secure email. The proof is in a backup file from July 17th. Password is the date you saved my life." Catherine's blood ran cold. The tone, the password. It could only be Leo. She scrambled to her spare laptop and logged into an encrypted email account she rarely used. There, sitting in her inbox, was an email from L.F., sent 2 hours ago. Attached were an encrypted video file and several documents. She typed 061522013. The file's unlocked. The video was security footage from the Sterling server room, dated 3 months ago, the week before Leo resigned. On screen, Dylan and her former assistant, Jessica, were plugging a drive into the main server. "This is a backdoor program for the financial system," Leo's email read. "They altered historical data to create a trail of fraudulent entries. I've attached the original, untampered data for verification." Catherine's hands trembled as she opened the other files. There was everything. The complete original financials, audio recordings of Dylan's secret meetings with Ethan Reed, and screenshots of Jessica leaking company secrets to the press. The final document was a shell corporation agreement showing Dylan had secretly acquired an additional 8% of Sterling stock, giving him a total of 20% controlling interest. The email ended with a simple line, "Mr. Henderson, the majority shareholder, has already seen this. He'll back you tomorrow. Do not reply." Catherine stared at the screen, her heart pounding. When had Leo discovered all this? Why had he gathered the evidence, but said nothing? And most importantly, why was he helping her now? Outside, the rain began to subside. Catherine washed her face, pulled her hair into a tight bun, and applied her brightest red lipstick. The fight wasn't over. The next day's board meeting was the most dramatic in Sterling's history. When Dylan walked in, beaming with confidence, Catherine was already seated at the head of the table. "Decided to face the music, cousin?" he sneered. Catherine simply smiled. "Before we begin, I thought we could all watch a short film." When a footage of him in the server room appeared on the screen, the color drained from Dylan's face. His own voice filled the room from the audio file. "Change the Q3 numbers from last year. Turn the loss into a profit. Dump the stock after the price inflates. It's fake. All of it," he shrieked. "It's a setup by Foster. He's been on it with her the whole time." "Is that so?" The boardroom doors opened and Mr. Henderson, the elderly majority shareholder, walked in, leaning on a cane. "Then how do you explain these?" He threw a stack of bank statements on the table. "You've been siphoning company funds through an offshore account. You even took your own father's retirement money." Dylan collapsed into his chair, utterly defeated. Over the next hour, Catherine systematically dismantled every one of his accusations with irrefutable proof. The board, in a stunning reversal, voted unanimously to terminate Dylan, pursue legal action, and sever all ties with Orion Dynamics. Afterward, Catherine stood alone at her window, looking out at the rain-washed city. Her phone rang. It was her father. "Dad, you heard? Henderson told me everything." His voice sounded older. "Catherine, I owe you an apology. I was too lenient with your cousin for too long." "It wasn't just Dylan's fault, Dad," she said, closing her eyes. "I was wrong to. I heard that young man, Leo Foster, was a great help." Her throat tightened. "Yes, I always thought he was." "Well, it doesn't matter," her father sighed. "How do you plan to thank him?" Catherine looked toward the distant Orion Tower. "I don't know what he would even accept from me anymore." Hanging up, she opened her safe and took out a document. A transfer agreement for 51% of Sterling Corp stock. Her entire stake. Absolute control of the company. The receptionist at Orion Dynamics nearly spilled her coffee when Catherine Vance walked in. Ms. Vance. Mr. Foster is in a meeting. I'll let him know. No need, Catherine said calmly. I can wait. She waited for 3 hours. When Leo finally stepped out of the elevator, he stopped short at the sight of her. He was thinner than the last time she'd seen him, with faint shadows under his eyes, but he stood just as straight. Catherine, he walked over, his voice cautious. She stood up, suddenly at a loss for words. Up close, his eyes were still as clear as she remembered, but they no longer held that special light when they looked at her. Can we talk? Was all she managed. He glanced at his watch. I have another meeting in half an hour. The coffee shop downstairs. In a corner booth, Catherine slid the stock agreement across the table. This is 51% of sterling. No strings attached. Leo stared at the document, his expression shifting from shock to confusion, then settling into a calm neutrality. What is this? A thank you, Catherine said, meeting his gaze. Without the evidence you provided, sterling would be. I just did what was right, he interrupted. This isn't necessary. It's not just for the evidence. Catherine's fingers traced the rim of her coffee cup. For the last 3 years. The way I treated you. Catherine, Leo said softly, you really don't have to do this. I didn't help you to get something in return. Then why? She asked, her voice almost desperate. He was silent for a moment. Maybe I just didn't want to see the person who once gave me a glimmer of light fall into darkness herself. The words pierced her heart. That rainy night, she had given a struggling artist not just a ticket, but a sense of dignity. A dignity she had spent the next 3 years methodically stripping away. Leo, she reached for his hand, her voice trembling. I saw the letters. On your computer. He pulled his hand back sharply, his eyes turning to ice. You went through my private files? I just wanted to understand. Understand what? For the first time, he raised his voice. Understand how pathetic I was? How laughable. Was it amusing to read all my foolish, hopeful letters? No, it wasn't like that, she said urgently. I finally realized what I missed. I love you. The confession, finally spoken, fell into a bottomless silence. Leo's expression froze, then softened into something that looked almost like pity. It's too late, Catherine, he said quietly. My heart is tired. He stood, leaving the multi-billion-dollar stock agreement on the table. My meeting is about to start. Take care of yourself. Catherine sat frozen, watching his back as he disappeared through the door. Sunlight streamed through the window, making the stock agreement glitter, but couldn't buy back the one thing she wanted most. She finally understood that some losses could never be recovered, no matter how much money or power you threw at them. For the third time that afternoon, the receptionist at Orion Dynamics glanced at the clock on the wall. 5:50 p.m. The unwelcome visitor was right on schedule. Catherine Vance, dressed in a simple white blouse and black pencil skirt, her hair in a loose bun, looked almost like a regular person. If not for the face that graced the cover of Forbes, the receptionist would never believe this was the infamous Ice Queen of Sterling Corp. Mr. Foster is still in a meeting, the receptionist said, reciting her now familiar line. Would you like me to take a message? No, thank you. I can wait, Catherine replied, her voice surprisingly gentle. She took her usual seat on the lobby sofa, her posture as regal as if she were in her own boardroom. It was her 7th consecutive day waiting for Leo at Orion. After their conversation in the coffee shop, he had made it clear he wouldn't see her privately. So she had resorted to the most basic method available. She showed up. The elevator pinged, and a group of software engineers emerged, their cheerful chatter dying the moment they saw her. Whispers followed them across the lobby. It's her again, the dragon lady from Sterling. I heard he chased her for 3 years. Looks like the tables have turned. Catherine's expression didn't change, though she dug her nails into her palms. The daily ritual had hardened her to the stares and whispers. At 6:30, Leo finally appeared. He saw her, paused for a fraction of a second, and then walked directly toward her. Catherine. He nodded, his tone polite and nothing more. Is there something I can help you with? She stood. Would you have dinner with me? She asked, her voice softer than she intended. Just as old colleagues. He looked at her for a long moment, then shook his head. I'm sorry, I have plans tonight. Tomorrow, then? I'm busy tomorrow as well, he said, gently but firmly. Catherine, you don't have to do this. Sterling and Orion are competitors. It's not appropriate for us to be seen together. It was a perfectly reasonable excuse, but it made her chest ache. How many times had she said something similar to him? Now she knew exactly how it felt. I just want to thank you, she said, the word to struggle. And to apologize. His expression softened for an instant. I accept your thanks and your apology. Was there anything else? His brisk acceptance left her speechless. She would have preferred his anger, his accusations. At least that would mean he still cared. This calm dismissal felt like he was closing a file on a completed project. The letters, she began, and immediately regretted it. His eyes went cold. That was my private journal. I know. I'm sorry, she said quickly. But reading them, I finally understood. Catherine, he cut her off, his voice still quiet but with an edge of finality. Let's just leave the past in the past. We should both move on. He gave a slight nod and turned toward the exit. She stood and watched his straight back disappear into the evening light, a lump forming in her throat. The next afternoon, she arrived early. The receptionist was away from the desk, and Catherine's eyes fell on the open visitor log. Her name filled the page, Catherine Vance, to see Leo Foster, 5 to 6:30 p.m., no meeting. Ms. Vance? A man's voice came from behind her. It was Ethan Reed, Orion CEO, a smirk playing on his lips. Mr. Reed, she composed herself. I'm here to see Leo. I know, he chuckled. The whole company knows. I have to say, your persistence is impressive. She felt a flush of heat in her cheeks, but held his gaze. It's a personal matter. Of course, he said, but perhaps I can help. Leo's at our factory on the east side today. He won't be back until at least 7. Seeing her shoulders slump slightly, he hesitated, then added, he still has a few personal things from Sterling in his office. If you want to take a look. She looked up sharply. Why are you telling me this? Curiosity. Ethan shrugged, handing her a key card. I want to see what the great Catherine Vance is truly capable of. Room 1708. Don't get caught. 10 minutes later, she slipped into Leo's office. It was spartan and tidy. The only personal item was a small framed photo of the kids at the Sunbeam Youth Center gathered around the piano. She carefully checked the drawers. The bottom one was locked. She hesitated, then typed in the date. 061-52013. It clicked open. Inside was a single black notebook. She opened it. Her breath caught. The title read, The Catherine Vance Rescue Mission. And underneath, in smaller script, a log of every time I was able to help her. The first entry was from 3 years ago. 1. Took the drink, mister. Davies offered her. She's allergic to whiskey. 2. Stayed up all night, fixing her presentation slides. 3. Found her grandmother's emerald earring. It fell between the car seats. Catherine's hands trembled. She remembered that dinner. Davies had been pushing her to drink, and Leo had suddenly stepped in and downed 3 glasses for her, getting sick later. All she had said to him was, don't overstep. She flipped to the middle. 127. Convinced Mr. Henderson not to pull funding. Worked for 3 straight days on the new pitch deck. 128. Killed the negative press story about the heartless layoffs. 129. Birthday gift, she returned it. Her vision blurred. The layoff story had nearly destroyed her reputation. Leo had somehow gotten the major papers to retract it. She had never even asked how. The later entries were even more painful. 356. Handled all emergencies while her father was in the hospital. She never knew I had a 102-degree fever that week. 357. Fixed her favorite fountain pen. She thought Jessica did it. 358. Stopped the database hack. She credited the IT department. The last entry was from the week before he resigned. 1000. Gather evidence of Dylan's betrayal. Hope she never needs to use this. Beneath it, in fresh ink, was one final line. Attempt number 1001. I've decided to rescue myself. A tear fell onto the page, smudging the ink. She snapped the notebook shut, her chest heaving. She finally understood what he meant when he said his heart was tired. 1,000 attempts, 1,000 disappointments. Footsteps approached. She shoved the notebook back in a drawer just as the door opened. Leo stood there, his face a mask of shock and fury. What are you doing in here? She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. What could she say? That she'd just read his most private thoughts? That she finally understood how blind she'd been? Her voice was a raw whisper. I saw your list. The color drained from Leo's face. He strode to the desk, yanked open the drawer to confirm the notebook was there, then slammed it shut. Get out. His voice was dangerously low. Now, Leo, out, he roared. She had never seen him like this. His eyes burned with a pain so raw it looked like a physical wound. She stumbled back, hurrying to the door. I'm sorry, she whispered as she passed him. He didn't answer. Outside, a sudden storm had broken. She walked into the downpour without a second thought. The cold rain soaked her clothes, running in rivulets down her neck, mingling with the tears on her face. She didn't know how long she walked, but when she came to her senses, she was standing outside Leo's apartment building. The doorman recognized her. Ms. Vance? What are you? Is Mr. Foster home yet? She asked, her voice chattering from the cold. No, not yet. Would you like to wait inside? She shook her head. I'll wait here. She refused the umbrella he offered. The rain plastered her blouse to her skin, and her shoes were filled with water. People stared, some even took pictures. Sterling CEO soaked and shivering outside mid-range apartment building. It would be tomorrow's gossip headline. She didn't care. Night fell, and the rain grew heavier. Her teeth were chattering uncontrollably, just as her knees were about to give out. A black umbrella appeared over her head. What in God's name do you think you're doing? Leo's voice, tight with a mixture of anger and something else she couldn't place, came from behind her. She turned slowly. He was standing there, his suit jacket half-soaked, his eyes a storm of complex emotions. Her lips were blue with cold. I don't know. I had to see you. Before she could finish, her vision went black, and she pitched forward. The last thing she felt was a pair of strong, warm arms catching her before she fell.